Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we're anything but straight. My name is Space.
I'm Kira.
And I'm Ruby.
And we welcome to our episode, which is about mental health awareness.
Woohoo!
Woo!
We've done a mental health episode in the past. It was Kira's very first episode. But this one's a little bit different because it's about awareness of mental health. It's kind of perfect because we're releasing this for Suicide Prevention Month, which is September, which we thought would be key.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things we want to go over today, some interesting things, and then we'll kind of just go from there. So Ruby, why don't you go ahead and do the disclaimer real quick?
No problem.
Do.
Just to let kind of everybody know, this is going to be a pretty heavy episode. It involves mental health topics, which are not the easiest sometimes to talk about or hear. So if listening becomes too much, please take a break if you need to, and you can come back and continue listening if or whenever you're ready.
And a large portion of this podcast is going to be going over specific diagnoses, what the symptomology looks like, perhaps some advice from us if we, have these conditions diagnosed personally. But it should be noted that this is not a tool for personal diagnosis, self-diagnosis. We are not diagnosing you. These are professional diagnoses that should be diagnosed professionally. However, if you notice, certain symptoms between you or maybe someone that stand out to you, that resonate, perhaps ask your doctor, people around you. And it's good to just have conversations about these diagnoses, what they may mean and how they may affect you personally.
We kind of do have a professional, but she's not getting professional advice.
You guys have to pay me for that.
Yeah. Pay your copay, then we'll talk.
Then we'll talk.
So when we were making this episode, we were preparing for it, I had this thought, what if we came up with a series of questions that we could ask our therapists, since we all see therapists, and then see what their answers would be? And I thought that would be a really unique point of view, especially for those who may not know if therapy is the right thing, or if they're scared, or they're afraid of judgment, or just a bunch of other things. So let me go over those questions real quick. Mm-hmm. So the first one is, what piece of advice would you give to make therapy more effective? The second one is, what are some misconceptions you think people would have about seeing a therapist? The third is, would seeing a therapist be a short or long-term commitment? Fourth is, what are some benefits to seeing a therapist? I mean, that one's almost kind of like obvious, but we'll go over that. I lost count. Where am I at? 5?
I'm worried about being judged for my issues or sexual preferences by a medical professional. What are your thoughts on that? That's a good one.
Perfect. What if I'm under 18 and my parents and guardians refuse to let me see a therapist? Are there any suggestions or resources you would recommend for me to look into for getting help? What should I look for to find a therapist that works best for me? And last but not least, I don't have insurance, can't afford out of pocket, or I can't find a provider near me because they're not taking new patients. What should I do? That last one happens a lot.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why I wanted to ask it. These are questions that I thought would be something, a point of view from the audience who may have thought of something like this, but have never really gotten clear answers on. So let's go over the first one real quick. So what piece of advice would you give to make therapy more effective? I do want to let you know that we are not releasing our therapist names or their license, just out of privacy and also just to stay within HIPAA as well, in case we do have anything that goes along with that. If you're not familiar with HIPAA, do you want to explain what that is?
HIPAA is, what's the acronym actually stand for? It's HIPPA. HIPPAA. Sorry,
Yeah,
I should know that. So that's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So that basically is just, HIPAA is the act that keeps your private and personal information, especially and exclusively for medical information and resources, hidden from the public. So you have to sign off on documents to have your medical information released. That's why you need like a proxy, things like that. So a lot of your medical information is entirely hidden from everybody else except yourself under that act. And then vice versa with the providers as well. We're not allowed to disclose anything confidential that our patients tell us.
Mm-hmm.
When I have clients, I will tell them that the only time we kind of break that HIPAA is we have 3 hurts. If you say you're going to hurt yourself, if you say you're going to hurt other people, or if other people are saying that they're going to hurt you. That's sort of like the end all be all, like the overarching applicability of that as well, even with doctors and things like that. It's call for like health checks or things like that. But besides that, everything is fully confidential in the health healthcare world.
Yep. I'm in medical records, so I deal with HIPAA every single day with calls all the time.
Yep.
So very familiar with it. All right. So the first question, how do we want to go? Who wants to go first?
I think I'd like to go last because I'm going to give like my 2 cents on each of these, but I'd like to hear what your guys' therapists have to say first because I'm the baby
I'll go
therapist
first, and
here.
then Ruby goes second, and then Kara goes third.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so I asked my therapist, what piece of advice would you give to make therapy more effective? She said, always tell the truth. Therapy and therapists can't help you if you can't be honest.
I love that.
Yep.
Very simple.
I was going to say, mine wrote an entire document.
Damn.
So I'll try to sum it as I'm reading it.
Thorough.
Oh, she is. I love my therapist. So to make therapy more effective, engage with curiosity and openness, which is the same, and about yourself, your relationships, and the process. Therapy isn't about being fixed. It's about co-creating insight and change with your therapist.
That's a good one.
That's very good. Similar themes in both of those.
Yep. Set goals collaboratively with your therapist and be flexible with them. Reflect between sessions. Be honest about the process and center your cultural values and lived experience. A good therapist will invite your culture, gender, and sexual and familial context into the work. It's me and her agree with the same thing. If you hold back information, you're only doing yourself a disservice.
Definitely. Yeah. Well said. And the only other thing... sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, you go.
I was just going to say that the only other thing I would add is, like, if your therapist asks you to do quote-unquote homework, if you don't like the homework that they're giving you, if you're, like, not a worksheet person, I don't like to give out worksheets, but if you're not a worksheet person, you should say that. But I would definitely have, like, take home sort of something to keep in mind to say, like, if I'm working on, let's say if I'm working on anger management, I would want to have one example to bring to therapy next time of that, just to show that, like, the therapeutic process is still at the front of your mind and, like, it's something that you're actively working on as opposed to just having it be something you do as a routine. Like, that's helpful, but the actual doing therapy outside of therapy is helpful as well.
Yeah, I've never been given worksheets. I have 2 types of therapists. So I have one that I regularly talk to just about general stuff or things that I can't really get past, or I've got a wall, or it's PTSD. And then I have another one who's legit an ordained Buddhist monk. And so whenever I go and talk with him, it's a very low-key, calm environment, and we do a lot of meditation. So it just depends on the therapist that you get. But yeah, those are all really good concepts. You got to be honest, because
if
you're not honest, then they can't really help you with what it is.
And to tell you the level of openness, my therapist knows about this podcast. She's listened to episodes of this podcast, including the adult ones I was a part of, because I figured, why not?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
We'll be getting this episode too.
Shout out to Ruby's therapist. Hi, Ruby's therapist.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Ruby's therapist answer on this is there's a key thing. You don't go to therapy to fix yourself. It's not like a broken bone where you can get it mended and then it fixes itself and you're good to go for the rest of your life. Therapy is about working through and coming up with solutions or what is the...
Strategies.
Strategies is another one.
Tools is a big one.
Ways to deal with it.
Like coping skills?
Coping skills.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's even several times when I talk to my therapist, it's literally, how was this week? It's been rough. And I'll literally go, depression hard week, nothing external. It's just, can't fix that portion of me. So this is what's going on.
Right. I like the broken bone analogy because I feel like that's what a lot of people expect when they go into therapy. They'll say, I'm broken, fix me. Like in like a couple of goes. They want it convenient and quick, and that's just not how the process goes. No matter what modality you get into or what works for you, like I would rather compare therapy more so to like going to the dentist because like it's kind of a pain in the ass. No one really wants to do it like all of the time, but like you have to go every few months to get checked up and just make sure everything is like going right in the world. It's preventative a lot of the times too. It's not just I'm going here, I'm gonna fix something and then I'm done.
Yeah.
It can be a preventative measure if that's the type of therapy that works for you. Now,
and that is actually a thing that people have trouble wrapping their heads around. It's going to the doctor, going to the emergency room. It is a thing of I'm going to take care of a problem and that problem will be fixed.
Right.
It's not. The brain is a very, for lack of better terms, it's a very crazy thing. And I'm going to go with it. It's like car maintenance. You got to keep doing it to make it run right. right.
Exactly.
And there are people who will, a successful client is one that knows when like their time is sort of up with the therapist to some extent. Like you reach your goal, and besides reaching your goal, you also have the coping skills, the tools to kind of have your therapist's voice in your head say, well, what would be the productive thing to do right now? What would be the helpful thing to do? And so when you like quote unquote end therapy, which is a healthy thing, and you can do that to say like, I think I'm done. It's sort of like graduation, right? Where like the knowledge is still there, but it's still regulating your emotions and your day-to-day activities as well. Like it doesn't need to be your whole life forever. If it is, that's totally okay. But if you feel comfortable with being like, I've grown so much from when I started and I'm ready to, go about my day to day, that's okay too.
Yeah. All right. So the second question, what are some misconceptions you think people would have about seeing a therapist? So it's just a very simple, kind of obvious answer. Therapists can't help because we're quacks. Basically, people thinking that therapists can't do anything because they don't know what they're talking about because they're crazy.
Yeah. We are crazy, but
I mean, so something you probably don't know is that you go to the therapist to get help. Okay. So then you have to wonder how many patients that therapist sees and all of that information that goes into their brain. Crazily enough, therapists also have to also see a therapist to dump out all of that information as well. So it's not uncommon for a therapist to also see another therapist. It might be the policy of that office.
Yeah, even if your therapist doesn't see a therapist, regardless of that status, for me, like I'm a social worker turned therapist, which is very common. And regardless of your position, you will have mandated supervision to literally have time to dump that to your supervisor. Like we have that ingrained in our process. A really good show that I would recommend it's called In Treatment. It's like a documentary based show about therapy and what it looks like. And I think it is the most accurate. It's a couples therapist, but it's the most accurate representation of like what therapy actually looks like from the position of the therapist. And you see like that supervision and the therapist go in and say, I don't know if I did the right thing, or I don't know if because you need somebody to guide you as well. And because it's not a broken bone, a lot of us are just kind of doing our best with what we have and the tools that we have. And not every story is going to be a success story, but ideally, you use the skills that you have to help, your clients, your patients, things like that.
Yeah.
Was that the only one? Was that the only bullet point yours used?
Yeah, that's all she had to say. It was just
Yeah.
a one-liner, essentially.
Common misconceptions. Therapy is only for people with severe mental illness. False. Therapy supports relational, identity, transitional, and emotional challenges at any level. Therapists will judge or analyze me constantly. For some reason, my brain wanted to say consistently. Therapists will judge or analyze me constantly. Effective therapists practice non-judgmental listening rooted in cultural humility and empathy and affirmation. It doesn't work. Talking doesn't change anything. Research supports that therapeutic relationship is the strongest predictor of outcomes. Talking is part of transforming meaning, insight, and behavior.
Wow. That's a very thorough thorough answer, but I like a lot of it.
There's a reason I will go with my therapist if she moves to another office because I love her. Me and her could probably go on a newlywed game and she'd probably get every anser about me right.
And that's how it should be. Like that's the type of relationship it should be. Very transparent, for better or for worse type.
But yeah, that's it. She gave me those are the three.
I more or less said my piece on that with the misconceptions. Just that, I think the biggest misconception is they think that they'll come into therapy and the therapist is going to have this holier than thou attitude. Like they're the peak of mental health and you're like a lowly worm that knows nothing and is struggling and they're going to treat you as such. It's like, no, if anything, they'll have their own experience and they should be transparent with you just as you're transparent with them.
Yeah.
Now this next one, it is an interesting one because it kind of goes with the whole idea of, well, I'm broken, fix me.
Yeah.
So would seeing a therapist be short or long-term commitment? So my therapist said it would all depend on what brought you in. The more complex the situation, the longer the therapy. I've been doing therapy for about a couple of years now. I suffer from chronic depression and a variety of other things. It's not going to go away. It won't go away. One of the reasons is the Klinefelter syndrome that I have does cause a constant depression, something I will just always deal with. So for me, therapy is long-term, but it just depends on how I feel. Sometimes I can go and see my therapist once or twice a month. And then I'm good for a couple of months. And then I feel bogged down and I go back and I see them once or twice. And then I'm good for another couple of months. Sometimes I got to go every week because I've got so much on my mind I can't think. So it just really depends on the individual person themselves. There's no like actual answer.
100%.
Yeah. For mine, I think she has an entire wall of text, but I think it can be summed to the first sentence. It depends on your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she also does marriage and family therapy approach. And even short-term sessions benefit, and you can always stop, come back. Therapy is a journey, not a sentence. So you can stop and come back any number of times you want. Like, even for me, I probably could stop at where I'm at. But I enjoy not only the therapeutic side of it or the therapy side of it, I enjoy just having a way to go, hey, here's what's going on in my brain. Please tell me I'm not crazy about this or crazy for this one. Because we'll get into things about that later on. But yeah, I personally enjoy therapy. It's like one of the highlights of my week.
And it can be a good like part of your routine too. It can feel good. It's like mental hygiene, I've heard it called, where like it sort of cleans your brain out. You go, you come back, you're like, I did, I was able to be vulnerable this time during this week, and I get to do it all again in 2 weeks. And until then, I can kind of like monitor what's going on with me and save it up for later to talk about.
Yeah.
I'd also say for short term, there's a lot of therapists who specialize in certain issues or like things people are going through. So for example, like let's say you had somebody close in your family die. Grief counseling, like there are people who are just professional grief counselors. And with that, they have a more fine-tuned process that is, one would say, shorter term, as opposed to it being like years and years, right? Like a longer term therapy. It's more of a short term. And what's nice about that is if you're looking for just that, they can say, hey, we can walk you through this process. Here's what each week will look like, and almost give you like a college class syllabus as to what it might look like each week. And that can be really nice for something like that because it gives you a certainty to look forward to. And you don't have to mentally prepare or like have to wonder about what you're going to talk about that week. You can say, oh, well, this week we're going to talk about this, because the grief process is relatively consistent for many people. And it can be a good like structure for that to have you, feel what you need to feel and get you back in a better headspace.
The next one is, what are some benefits to seeing a therapist? My therapist said someone safe to talk to, no judgment.
Mine, it's emotional regulation and relief, improved communication, self-understanding and growth, trauma processing and healing, navigation of major life transitions, family conflict, and support for marginalized identities in a space of allyship and solidarity.
I would say from the opposite perspective, I like seeing a wide variety of clients. For those of you who worry like either my issues are too big or too small, to us it doesn't matter. Like we want to see everything because we want to experience clients with everything and to assist and learn about each and every one of them. So don't think your problems are either too big or too small. I hear that a lot. I think the benefit of going for us is to just learn about as much as we can and to do our best, even though it's not always perfect.
All right, the next one is, I would say, is a common thought.
Yes.
I'm worried about being judged for my issues or sexual preferences by a medical professional. What are your thoughts on that? So she kind of wrote like a side note off to the side, which took me a second to read over it because I was like, what? But she has two things she wants to say. She says, run, don't walk away from anyone that doesn't accept you.
Yep.
And the other one is, any medical professional should be free of judgment. Change if you feel you aren't accepted by that professional. It can literally be window shopping for you. Not every therapist is going to be perfect for you, but for some there are. Like mine, perfect for me. Absolutely works. She is fantastic. I go in and her office is like a sensory wonderland. She's got like quotes and sayings on the window. She's got tons of like fidget toys and things to look at. She's got everything for like kids up to adults, like anything you can think of. And the first time I met her, she asked me what kind of food I like to eat. I'm like, well, for lunch at work. And I'm like, every once in a while I like to have ramen. She's like, what kind? Chicken or beef? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe both. And so she turns around, goes around the side of her chair, and then she goes, here you go. And there are two bowls of instant ramen.
Oh my god. Aw.
Love it.
So I went home with and I'm like, this chick gets it. Okay, she gets
Yes.
me.
My
So
therapist
weird.
knows that I like houseplants, and she's like brought me like babies of her houseplants, and now I like have I have her houseplants babies growing in my windowsill.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
And it just reminds me of like how long it's been since I've like been through therapy and like how much I've grown. I don't know, it's cute. Also, please play with our fidget toys. We put so much effort into figuring out which ones like people would like. So I used to be so worried about like playing with the fidget toys, but now I'm like, ooh, give me one of these, give me one of these.
Ooh, I haven't seen this one before.
Yeah, let me take the free snacks. Like take advantage of it because it makes us happy.
Mhm.
I've taken home like a rubbing stone, like 2 or 3 of them. They're really fun to just like, I guess you quote unquote rub with them. I've taken home a weird squiggly thing that constantly squiggles around. You can like untouch it and detach it, or detach it and reattach it. One she gave me, I can't remember what it is, but it's like this super squishy egg, and it was like glittery. And once I put my hand
Well,
on it, I'm
we
like,
know why
oh my
Space liked
god.
it.
I can't not love squishing this. And so I took it to work, and I would actually squish it a lot during like ridiculous phone calls that I got. She did go to like a conference once, and she came back and she's like, I brought back a couple of toys to look out. And she's like, but there was this one toy that she was mentioning. She's like, I brought it back, but I don't think I'll ever use it. And I think you'll see why. She pulls it out, and I'm like, oh, that's a ball sack.
Oh my god.
It totally looks like a ball sack. And I'm like, I want to squish it because it's me, but I don't think I would actually take this.
Take it to the hospital with you, take it home with you.
Wait, you guys forgot my ball sack.
No, not my ball sack.
See, they took mine away, so
Oh.
You got yoinked.
yeah.
You got fixed.
Ruby, what's
Okay.
your therapist say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she started with that this is a valid concern, especially for LGBTQIA+. But what she wants to know is you have the right to a therapist who affirms your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Affirms it, not just accepts it. And, oh my god, there's a lot here. She uses acronyms. I probably should have told her not to do that because I have to remember what the acronyms mean. A cultural, relational, and marriage and family therapy affirming therapist will explore your identity, sexuality as strengths, not issues. So the fact I'm trans is not an issue to look at. It's it's one of your strengths. It's one of you.
Right.
And ethical codes require therapists to provide non-discriminatory, cultural, competent care. And always, when you're looking for a therapist, ask them questions at the beginning.
Yep.
And look for affirming, inclusive, or trauma-informed language in their bios.
Yes, trauma is huge. Trauma-informed care is like a huge one.
Yeah. You're also not locked in a therapist. It's not like, oh, if this is the only one I have an opportunity to see. I thought that was with one therapist, and I finally learned I'm not, which is why I'm at the one I'm with now. And also, I'd love hearing y'all going to office. Mine's telehealth. So she actually looks in my background and is like, ooh, what's that? I have a Eric Draven Living Dead doll, and it's her favorite movie. So she's freaking out when she sees I have one.
So you guys have a good connection.
Oh, God, yeah. We're that acceptable level of nerd.
A good internet connection.
Oh, yeah. We're just both levels of nerd that we can understand each other. And it's just like, I want to show you this. Oh, my God, I got this cool little doll. And it's like, oh, my God, that's the coolest thing ever.
A lot of therapists are nerds. I will say that, too.
Yeah.
So if you're not about
But like the
nerdy.
last time I went to a in-person therapist, they had no fidget toys and stuff in there. None of that. Like, I'm also hearing y'all of what y'all, and I'm like, I've never been to a therapist that had those.
That's hell on earth.
Kind of jealous.
I had so many in my office. I would say for this one, a good resource, I think I might have talked about it in the first podcast episode I was on, but Psychology Today has like a therapist shopping tool, basically. And that one's nice because you can see, if they're open. If you see a therapist on there that's seems very, very good for you, I would still probably call and ask if there's any openings or like maybe to be put on a wait list. But regardless, they can put like LGBTQ aligned, trauma informed, all the different modalities. If you're like, I don't like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I don't want to do that. Cock ball torture, yeah.
Yeah, because that means so many things.
Such an unfortunate acronym.
It really is. That's a very different kind of therapy. It works for some people, but not for all. Yeah, if you don't want cock and ball torture, you can go right on the website and search for psychodynamic or art therapy or music or whatever you want. It's very, very good for searching.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and art therapy is on my I want to try because I am an artist as well. So it's I'm kind of curious. I just haven't
I've
known
never
where to
tried
look
it.
at.
I don't know anything about it. It's like a different
It
degree.
sounds interesting, and I kind
Yeah.
of just want to.
All right. So our next question is, what if I'm under 18 and my parents and guardians refuse to let me see a therapist? Are there any suggestions or resources you would recommend for me to look into for getting help? So she wrote, and this is a national for US and Canada. It's called the 211.
Yep.
It's a warm line. It's for specifically mental health. But I know that some of our listeners are outside of the US. So if you are, for Canada, there's a Talk Suicide Canada line. You can text 45645. Australia, you just call 13 11 14. The UK, you can call, let's see here, 116 123. And then there's a couple others, but I will list those in the information below in the description for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
That was mine.
Everybody knows I'm in North Carolina, so it doesn't matter. But she responded, in North Carolina, minors age 12 and up can, in some cases, consent to outpatient mental health treatment. But, payment is a thing.
Payment is a thing, unfortunately.
So her suggestions are school-based counselors or social workers in this area. Planned Parenthood can actually give confidential services and referrals.
Mm-hmm.
And then peer support and crisis hotlines were her three. And she listed hers. But again, one of them is North Carolina or NAMI, North Carolina Youth Programs. That's for my area. But the other two are Trans Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line. So
I believe NAMI is National Alliance of Mental Illness or something like that.
Okay. She gave me the North Carolina specific or the North Carolina Youth Program. So I think that's the link she sent. But if it is national, we'll put it in the.
There are NAMIs everywhere. I was part of NAMI in my undergrad. I had
How do you spell it?
NAMI.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
NAMI.
Acronyms
everywhere. I agree with the hotlines for sure, and I 100% agree as somebody who was formerly a school social worker, because the US is so big, specifically the US is so ginormous, and because the states can be very specific with their stupid legal bullshit for stuff like this, schools are a great first resource to giving you more resources. Mm-hmm. So for those of you under 18, I would also highly recommend, if you're in college, it doesn't matter if it's community college, a state college, anything like that, they'll have a counseling center, and typically you get multiple sessions that are entirely free.
Rad.
And even if not, they will help you find other resources.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask around. There are a lot of free resources for mental health stuff everywhere. Even going to your town's, I don't know if it would be the health building, the health office. Most towns have a health office. If you start there, they will redirect you.
Sadly, that's where my first therapist was.
And that's the thing too. Don't be afraid to
shop around.
Yeah, shop around. Even if you feel like you're lacking in resources, or you only have this one option and it's not doing you well, and if anything, it's making you feel worse. Just drop it and find something else. If it's a text line, there will be something that will work for you if you keep looking.
Yeah. That's it for mine.
The next one, I think I might need a burp. Nope.
Cool.
False alarm. What should I look for to find a therapist that works best for me? So mine said, if they are knowledgeable with different treatment modalities, have the therapist explain their process. Kara, do you want to explain what a treatment modality is?
I would love that. So like I said earlier, CBT, cock and ball torture, aka cognitive behavioral therapy, is the most commonplace modality. It's sort of what we're all taught, and it's what you think of when you think of therapy. CBT is sort of retraining your brain into doing what you want it to do instead of what it's doing instead, to put it in very plain terms. But a lot of different modalities, your typical, if you're to think of a psychodynamic modality, is your classic, I'm laying on the couch and talking about my dreams, and somebody is analyzing them, right? And I really like that sort of thing. Like, that's kind of my bread and butter. But there are many different ones. Like, there's family systems, which you would go with your therapist and sort of map out everybody in your family who, relates back to you in some way and how they all interconnect. So it's all doing therapy, but I would recommend, if you're like struggling with something specific, look into all of the modalities. When you're shopping, look and see what your therapist specializes in, because, in theory, we would all be able to do everything, but therapists are going to have their biases. They're going to have what works best for them, and they will say it. Like, they should not shy away from what they are specialized in. So go from there, and it's relatively easy to figure out. Like, you don't need to understand the super minute details of each modality. Just understand like what each of them entails and then go into it from there, because they'll be able to work with you from that. But each of them are very different. So yeah, psychodynamic, family system, CBT, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy is very good for like borderline personality disorder, for example. So different modalities work well for different diagnoses.
EMDR is really good for PTSD.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that is.
Yes, it is.
It's EMDR is insane on how it works, but every time we do it, my therapist makes sure to say to clear my schedule for the next, like the rest of the day or the next 2 days, because all of the process that you've gone through, all the emotions can really like weigh
heavy.
you down. It's heavy, yeah, but not in a bad way. It's just a way of the brain processing stuff.
Yeah, EMDR, for those of you who didn't listen to our one episode where we talked about it a little bit, that's eye movement. What's the acronym?
Desensitization and reprocessing. Yeah, desensitization and reprocessing.
Yes. So the reprocessing is the big one. So your eyes like follow. It sounds very woo-woo, but what's the word? It's research-based. Like, the data shows that it works very well, actually, especially for, deeper trauma or PTSD, where like your eyes will follow a light and a tone will play in each of your ears, and your therapist will walk you through the process of sort of packing or unpacking trauma. And it can be very helpful. It's sort of like you have control over it, but it's sort of like taking you sort of through your brain's, like the folds of your brain, and just kind of passing through memories and understanding them from a new perspective, or like giving you that space.
Like a good example of this,
trippy.
just like at face value, it's like how my therapist says is imagine walking down a hallway and you see a picture. That picture is a painful memory. And every time you see it, it makes you feel terrible. But after EMDR, you walk down that same hallway, you see the picture, but it maybe bothers you like 1%, and you're just like, whatever, and you keep going.
Right. Because it's giving your brain, it genuinely like opens up, the science behind it is fascinating. It opens up neural pathways in your brain that are kind of like clogged or not exposed enough, and it gives you more like ease of access to traumatic memories that might be subconsciously. A lot of it is subconscious. Think of an iceberg, right? The tip of it is what you can see, that's your conscious thought, but all of the iceberg underneath is subconscious. And that's what quote unquote does a lot of the triggering when people will have PTSD. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I've been to the grocery store 100 times, why did it bother me today? And usually it's something that you don't know off the top of your head, but it's something subconscious. And EMDR kind of allows you to go into a more of a trance state and expose yourself to formerly traumatic things, to the point where like it's like a phobia. Like, you won't be scared of them anymore because you're facing them.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Mine says look for alignments in your values. Do they match your cultural humility, LGBTQ allyship, racial justice? Their approach, are they systematic, person-centered, trauma-informed? Their specialties, do they have experience in what you're looking to work on? And their accessibility, do they have a sliding scale payment system? Can you do online? Can you do evenings? You can find the best matching therapist, but if they're not available at the times you need them, and then where to search, she gives that, and we'll put these in the descriptions. But Psychology Today, you can search filters. They have filters that you can search for a specific therapist. Mine actually came up under this search. It's actually where I found mine. Inclusivetherapist.com and therapyforqueerpeople.com, which I never heard of.
This is good for me because later on I can put my face on there.
And then also, if your area has an LGBTQ center, ours does.
I know ours does.
And they might have a directory you can look at. because LGBTQ
Yeah.
people need therapists. We got a lot of shit to work through, and it's the world that's fucking with us.
Very true. I would also say, like, it's kind of controversial, especially, in different states. I'm from New York. We're a very blue state. I think that a lot of the therapists here are very forward with their beliefs, but, like, even in New York, I've run into therapists who are Trump supporters and would not, say that. And like that, and I don't say that to discourage anybody, but I think that therapists should be very upfront and forward. If you're not sure, or if your therapist is very like, I don't really want to tell you about my personal life or my beliefs or my values, you don't have to tolerate that. You don't have to put up with that, and you don't have to be left wondering. You should be 100% confident that your therapist isn't, politically opposed or doesn't think that trans people are real or whatever it is. Because, there's bad doctors out in the world, there's bad therapists out in the world, and you're allowed to be like, fuck this, I'm out. Like, I'm not dealing with this. I wouldn't feel bad about it either, if I'm being entirely honest.
Well, like, if my therapist didn't provide telehealth, it would warp my entire day.
Yeah.
Because I would have to take off work. I would have to do this. What I do on my, let me walk you through my day for therapy. I clock out for lunch. I go microwave my food. I go sit in my van, sit my phone on my steering wheel, and enter the program.
Yeah.
That's my therapy.
It's that simple to find somebody who, like, is good for you.
Yeah. If I had to drive to an office, it'd be annoying.
My therapist is flexible on the weekends, which is really nice.
Yeah, a lot of them will do late appointments too.
That's because, and so she said it's because regular people also have to work during the week, and so they can't get there during the week. So we provide weekend service as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah. That's lovely.
Which also, what works for, and also this is kind of a fun flip of the script, my schedule and my, like, how I function works great for my therapist, because if she's messaged me many a time, hey, we just had this happen and I need to move you like to tomorrow 1 hour later. I'm like, okay, whatever, go for it, have fun.
Do what
like
you must.
she was in a car wreck one day, and she said, you were the only one who responded with no problem, let me know details, and are you okay?
Yeah. And they should let you know.
Yeah, because I was like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything you need me to do for you? Because holy hell.
The last one is, I would say it's most common. I don't have insurance, can't afford the out-of-pocket, or I can't find a provider near me because they're not taking new patients. What should I do? So my therapist ended with a question and asked, do they have Medicaid? So in the United States, we have Medicaid for low-income families.
That was
yes,
my first
Medicaid
thought.
Covers therapy.
I was a Medicaid therapist just a few months ago, and it was like the best experience ever. There are many, many, many places because, therapy is, especially social workers too. I would look into seeing social workers, because social workers can take Medicare and Medicaid as opposed to counselors. So that would be like an LMSW, or like a licensed family therapist as well could. But social workers are typically, it depends on the state, but usually they're better at taking Medicare or Medicaid.
You can also call the hotlines too.
Oh yeah.
Those are always typically free.
And schools, of course, are free. School therapy.
Yes. For mine, a lot of the resources she gave was local, so I'll hold those. But again, the LGBTQ centers, they might have support groups or referrals. Ask therapists directly if they offer a sliding scale or reduced fees. You can also try nonprofits and training clinics. So training clinics, basically you would be working with therapists in training under supervision.
Yep.
Ooh,
kind of like, for lack of better terms, kind of like being a cosmetic, like they have to practice.
Like going to
on
cosmetology
people.
school.
Yes.
Yeah, they have to practice on people.
Yeah.
It's the same way with therapy. And it's a super reduced costs are free that it would definitely help you.
It would definitely help. There's a big stigma around student therapists where people will say, well, they're not experienced, so they're not going to do a good job, so I'm just wasting my time. If I'm not wasting my money, then I'm just wasting my time. But actually, the data says that students who are therapists that are still in school actually do a really good job. You can look that up. Like, statistically, the rates of success are, I don't want to say that they're higher, I don't remember off the top of my head, but they are significantly higher than one would think. And
Well,
that's
and
because they're
how are
in
they supposed to
school.
get experienced?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, we do have supervision. The students have supervision, but even, people with their masters and their licensure, you have to have supervision. It's required. And it's the same exact type of supervision that somebody with a license would have.
Yeah.
Exactly same type of supervision.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I already said it. Yeah, group therapy and support groups. It might not be as ideal, but it's still someone to help you, someone to talk to, guidance.
That can be
So,
really good for like one topic too. Like the grief was one example. Grief groups are great. Any kind of substance use or abuse, that's really great to have as a resource. And even like certain like very specific diagnoses, like I'm sure there's PTSD, CPTSD support groups, bipolar, things like that.
anxiety, any
Yes,
of those.
depression.
Even your LGBTQ
Oh yeah.
plus support groups. That way, at least there's options and help. And even if that's not a perfect fit, maybe they can suggest something that would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, don't be afraid to email. If you see something where you're like, this would be the perfect fit for me, but I can't afford it, I would email and say, hey, here's my situation. What could I do? And typically there will be somebody there who's willing to look into things for you or might know a resource that you don't.
Yeah. The more eyes you can have on it, the better.
Yep.
All right. So hopefully those types of questions help you with your decision of going to therapy. Now we go to the common MILF?
The common MILF.
Mental health?
Yep.
The common MILF. The common mental health diagnosis.
I'm just going to say to my therapist right now, I am so sorry because I know there's episodes I've sent you that it's like, I can't send this to my patients. This might help. Sorry, this is becoming one of them.
Slowly but surely. Between the cock and ball torture and the common MILF.
Yep.
God. Oh my God. So again, these are not a tool for you to self-diagnose, but these are the most common mental health issues that people go through. So I guess I'll start off then. MDD, which is major depressive disorder, one that I currently hold in my ranks.
I have that.
Yeah.
I have that mental health merit badge sticker too.
Yeah, I got it as a scout. Major depressive disorder, clinical depression, is categorized as a persistent feeling of sadness, hopelessness, and a lack of interest in life. It affects sleep, energy levels, appetite, and daily activities. Treatment options include therapy, medication, and lifestyle changes. So I both do a combo of things for this. The first part is medications. So I have medications that are for daytime and medications that then help me fall asleep. Some of these medications that help me fall asleep are used in mental health disorders, but at certain strengths can also be used as sleeping aids. So I also suffer from severe insomnia. So my medications help really well. So should I say which ones I take?
You can if you want to, or you could just say like it's an SSRI or whatever you want to say.
So for daytime, I take Lexapro and bupropion.
Okay.
And then at night, I take trazodone, hydroxyzine, and then Lunesta. So those help me fall asleep. Those all together in combination. Sometimes you only need one of those, but because it's so hard for me to relax and fall asleep, I require a high dose of concentration medications.
Yeah, and there's a big misconception where people will think that depression means you sleep all day, but yeah, a lot of times it does lead to that insomnia, or like even though you're in bed, you're not necessarily sleeping. There's just not a lot like you can do with yourself physically. There's a lot of like energy depletion, feeling worthless, feeling unable to do anything. And of course, there's a difference between being depressed, quote, over something, which is a terminology I don't like to use, but if you had something happen to you or somebody that you love and it's upsetting you, that's a different diagnosis entirely. But if you're having like weeks and weeks of where you feel like you can't do anything and you can't necessarily put a finger on why, maybe look into it, maybe talk to a doctor or your therapist. And a lot of these too, people are scared to talk to their primary care doctor about their symptoms, but primary care doctors can 100% help you find resources, especially because they know what your insurance is and they know what's in their network and what's in your network.
They can give you like a referral, and that can sometimes bump you to the beginning of the line.
Yeah, and
Nice.
some primary care doctors will even be able to diagnose and give you mental health medication. There are also times when what happened with me was my therapist is a social worker and she can do everything but prescribe. And so she wrote a note to my doctor, and then my doctor was able to prescribe me an SSRI. But I'll talk about that later. But it's just food for thought. If you're like, well, they're not a psychologist, they can't, or a psychiatrist, they can't prescribe me medication. It's like, well, you can still get that worked out.
Typically with MDD, my coping mechanisms, and they're not healthy ones, but they're ones that work for me, is I will shut down. So I will just go what I call going quiet. So if you don't see me talking on Telegram for a long time, and a long time could be full days or even a week, and I may message here and there, that's usually an indicator that I am just going through something and I just don't want to deal with it, or I just don't have the energy to really, I don't know, bring myself up to happiness. The other one I usually typically do is it's shutting down, but I shut everyone else. I seclude myself from everything. So I kind of just stay in my dark little
Your bear
computer room.
cave.
Yeah, essentially. Or I'll sleep all day because I just don't want to deal with anything. Who wants to do GAD?
I could do GAD. So GAD is a generalized anxiety disorder. MDD and GAD are the two biggies. That's what we see most in contemporary society, is either major depression or generalized anxiety. And it involves excessive and uncontrollable worry about various aspects of life. So it'll have you feeling anxious most days, difficulties in concentration, again with sleep. And the treatments include cognitive behavioral therapy and anti-anxiety. The generalized anxiety tends to bounce from one thing to another. Any little thing can sort of quote unquote set somebody off. It can be related to a panic disorder if things get more intense. I think we'll talk about that later, but anxiety attacks are when you feel like completely overwhelmed. It affects your breathing. It'll definitely affect your sleep, keep you up at night, things like that. I think that there are certain details to go into for generalized anxiety disorder, but it's sort of like what you think of when you think of generalized anxiety disorder is pretty much what it is. Just like quote unquote worry wart about things, and therapy can help you manage why you're worrying and maybe unpack some of that like prior trauma. And then also the CBT will assist in restructuring your thoughts, and maybe instead of your body's response being anxiety, it could be, you're able to calm yourself down.
I dealt with an anxiety attack. I deal with them a lot. They come and they go, but the worst one I had was when I was at the grocery store and I pulled in and parked. And then once I did that, I was about to get out of my car, and two Trump like pickup trucks, super like extended high, like extension or suspension wise, one pulls up on both sides of my car, and I just lost it. And I started crying in my car because I was so afraid to get out of my car. I've never had anything like that before. It just so generally worried me.
But the drivers should get out and kiss, though, in my opinion. They're perfect for each other.
That was, I didn't have any like instant medications or anything. I just kind of had to process the moment, which took me about 30 minutes, but then eventually I was able to get out of my car.
And that was stemmed in reality. Like, for generalized anxiety, you have a reasoning for it. It's just that the quote unquote reasoning isn't, you're not reacting the way, you're technically supposed to, right? That could cause some anxiety, but the diagnosis implies that it's too much for what it actually is. I would even argue that in that situation, that was an entirely valid response because of, you being a gay man and being surrounded by two people who are outwardly hateful and feeling, entrapped by that and not wanting to get out of your car. But it would be like, maybe next time you go to the grocery store and you pull in, you'd be hyper vigilant and looking around and being like, oh my God, they're going to come again. I can't go in, this or that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I seek it out.
Yep.
Yeah. Next one. All right.
Woo.
I get bipolar disorder. Woo.
Which Ruby are we talking to? Oh, no,
wait. I get bipolar disorder.
That's a different one.
Woo.
That's schizophrenia. Never mind.
But no, bipolar disorder causes extreme mood swings from the two poles, so manically high to depressive lows. During the manic phases, individuals can feel euphoric, highly energized, and while in depressive phases will be sad, extreme sadness and fatigue. Treatment generally involves a combination of mood stabilizers, therapy, and lifestyle adjustments.
There's two technically 3 types of bipolar. There's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and then like hypomania, which is a less severe version. So depending on, it has to do with your ups and downs, your highs and lows, and how frequent they are. And then there's also
basically which one's the most
it's either is
predominant?
it your mania, and mania doesn't look like, ooh, I'm hyper. It can tend to get a bit more severe with like delusions of grandeur. Like, for example, it would be like if you have somebody in your life who would say like, I'm going to win the Olympics, and they've never been an athlete before. That's a very severe example, but it's an example nonetheless of just like, where did this come from? Or like, where is this energy coming from? Typically they won't sleep for a long time. They won't eat. And then that comes to a head, and then there's a crash, a depressive crash. So a lot of times these people will be very, very creative, spontaneous, excitable, and then go to depressed, suicidal, just like at the drop of a hat. Typically it's like a 2-week on and off thing for, I guess you'd say, your most common cases. And another thing to be aware of is if this is something that you're concerned that you or a loved one has, a lot of the time we see medication mismanagement is when somebody will come in without the manic context, and they will just say, hey, I'm depressed. I'd love some medication for depression, especially if it's like not a therapist, it's just a doctor. Or a lot of the times people with bipolar, I believe you need to be hospitalized to have the bipolar 1 diagnosis because it's more severe. But if you get there and they only know of your condition as a depression, and then they prescribe you an SSRI, that can make your symptoms way, way, way worse. So just be aware of like how that person is being prescribed medication. The one real treatment besides therapy for bipolar is lithium, which is a very volatile, it's like literally lithium, like the element lithium, like the metal lithium. They inject it. I think it's monthly or bi-monthly, and then you have to go and get your blood, your like metal levels in your blood measured. But it has shown to be the most fruitful medication for that disorder.
A reference to that, Britney Spears was given lithium.
Yes.
A lot.
That's a good example of like what mania can look like, though. Like, she shaved her head, like it was a lot of stuff where it's just like that person's, quote unquote going crazy, and then after a while they just have that like depressive crash. It can be really frustrating. It's a diagnosis that can put you at a very high risk for suicide because of like the volatile emotions. And like, I mean, it's extra hard. Like, think about how it feels to be on top of the world and all of a sudden you feel like you can't do anything, and like you haven't slept for days, and it's just, it all comes into you at once, and you feel worthless. It's a very difficult one to manage. People also get, because of the acronym, so like bipolar would be like BP1 or BP2. A lot of folks get confused with bipolar disorder and then our next diagnosis, which is borderline personality disorder, which is BPD. BPD is a personality disorder. As I said, it's a cluster B personality disorder. There are 3 clusters, A, B, and C. And borderline is an intense emotional reaction. A lot of times it comes from childhood trauma, or like it stems from childhood trauma, and it revolves around fear of abandonment. So these people will tend to have very volatile relationships with others. You'll see them like get into relationships relatively quickly, have very, very, very intense emotional connection to somebody. That's typically called like your favorite person. And then if things go wrong, that person can be the best person in the world to you, and then the next day they can be the worst because of a misreading of emotions. A lot of it can come from hypervigilance, just constantly watching that person, interpreting everything they say as either a complete positive or a complete negative. Yeah, or a direct threat to like that person specifically. And it's a struggle to see like the gray area of things or of situations. A lot of self-image issues as well. A lot of people will go through like large sweeping changes in their appearance or personality. They like to like change the person that they are, quote unquote, because they're kind of looking for themselves in that. And sort of like mania, they can be very unpredictable, but it tends to be more destructive. So it can be acts of self-harm that aren't necessarily like self-harm as we see it as like a pure self-harm. It can be more so like, I'm going to just spend all of my money, or I'm going to cheat in my marriage that I've been in for a very long time, or just things like that. Not to put a negative connotation on any diagnosis, because I think that that's irresponsible, but it can lead to like these sudden shifts in mood and be very volatile. And borderline is the one diagnosis that has a modality that's specifically made for it. So that's dialectical behavioral therapy, that's DBT. And that's a more grounded approach. It's similar to CBT, but it's more so like unpacking from the bottom, like what is really happening here? Because I think it's difficult for people with BPD to see like the quote unquote reality of the situation. And it brings you to a center where it's like, wait a second, what does this person actually mean when they say that to me? What does this actually mean when I'm doing this? How do I affect other people?
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Oh, shoot.
I
And I
believe
wanted
you have the next. You have the next one.
I didn't. My bad. I didn't mean to. I completely. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
it's because BD or BPD can be sometimes misdiagnosed as bipolar disorder.
Yes, 100%. Or even
Well, the
like
two kind of go hand in
depressive or
hand.
yeah.
But let's talk about one that you're close to.
Yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about OCD. So I have OCD, which is kind of crazy to say because I'm like the therapist person, right? And I want to make it clear that like your therapists likely also have diagnoses. Everybody I went to school with had some sort of depression or anxiety or PTSD or just something that they were trying to get over themselves. And mine was OCD, which I was in denial about for a very long time. I was like, I'm fine. I'm anxious, but I'm fine. And I think it's called an MMPI. Yes, I took an MMPI, which is like a million billion question test that's all multiple choice, and that can help hone in on a certain diagnosis. So I remember I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was going into like these, what do I even call it? I was just like going into like these ruts of thought. And to me, I was like, this is more of a depression. And then I'd perk up and I thought I had bipolar for a little while or something. And this was a long time ago. And I had this full test and she's like, nothing for bipolar, but you really look like you have OCD. And I was like, nah. I thought I knew better. I was like, that's a very, like, it's more severe than anxiety. I don't want to put this on myself, so I'm just going to ignore it. And then I left that therapist, which is bad. I shouldn't have done that.
That's
And then
fair.
I started seeing a new therapist, and I was like, my old therapist thought that I had OCD. I don't know if I do. I don't feel like I do, but I like the therapist I have now a lot. And she kind of talked it through with me and explained, what that looks like. And I think it's because there's a lot of misconceptions. People will think OCD is like, you have to get every germ off of your body at all times. You have to wash your hands 100 times a day or touch the doorknob. And that's the C in OCD. That's the compulsions. But it's obsessive compulsive disorder. And so I have what's called pure O OCD, which is just the obsessions. And what that looks like for me is I will get an idea in my head and it will repeat and repeat and repeat. And that's very similar to the anxiety, but like, when it's bad, it's bad. So I'll give you an example because it got really bad during COVID. I was like in my room, I was doing Zoom school online. And I have a cat that goes outside, which is, an issue in and of itself, but he was outside. My parents let him out, right? And I was to the point where every time a car passed by my house, I had to look out the window because I was like, my cat's dead. And I was convinced, 100% convinced that that was the case. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it until I would get up and look at the window. So that's more of the compulsion side. Now that I've been more cognizant and going through therapy, it's more of that pure O that I have. And a lot of it would do with relationships as well. Like I would think that people are mad at me or that I would make mistakes when I really wouldn't. And something I was really, really against for a long time was taking medication. I was like, I don't want to be a therapist that takes medication. Like I want to prove that the therapeutic process is all somebody needs to be healthy. And my therapist really sat me down and was like, listen, you have something in your brain, like you have a chemical imbalance that you could do all the therapy in the world, but I think that you should try the medication. And she didn't force me, but she did convince me and spoke to me very directly. And it was the best decision I've ever made. Now I take like a very, a relatively low dose of Zoloft. I take 75 milligrams of Zoloft, and the change, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to feel like a soul crushing weight every single day. Like, this is amazing. I don't have to. And the way that she explained it to me was, she's like, this isn't a happy pill. This isn't a pill that's going to make you happy every single day or never make you feel upset. But she's like, you get stuck, and this is just going to help you get unstuck. Like, you're going to be upset and then realize you can walk away from something. And I was like, that's not real. That's magic. That doesn't even sound real. And then once I took it, I was like, oh my God. But it all comes from me. Like, I have to make the decision to be like, I can't be upset about this anymore, and use my therapy coping skills. But it stops that lingering sensation that just bogs me down, because like I was becoming dysfunctional as a therapist, and that was like the big draw for me, where I was like, I need to start doing, you know, something about this that actually helps. So that's my little story. But a lot of times you have the reoccurring thoughts, that's the obsessions, and then the repetitive behaviors is the compulsions. Now I feel like my compulsions are less so, like they're not as dramatic as like getting up or washing hands. It's more so like I'll crack my fingers, or I'll have to like, a lot of it is like joint cracking related, which is so much better than like having to physically get up and do something, or like checking to make sure I didn't leave my stove on, things like that. And the diagnosis really comes from like the disruption of daily life. So it depends on like how many times you do it, or how much of your day is occupied by these thoughts. And if it's like, if you go to check your stove, don't be like, oh my God, I have OCD. It's like, is that taking up at least an hour of your day, if not more? And there's different levels of it too that can be treated. But yeah, the SSRIs are so that's like your Zoloft, your Lexapro, there's got to be another one off the top of my head, don't remember.
Lexapro, also known as
Wellbutrin.
escitalopram. Yeah,
Yes.
Wellbutrin or bupropion.
Yes, which is Buspar is the like fun name for that one. But I just talked a whole lot. But yeah, that's my overcoming OCD story. And if you're like in a position where you're trying to help other people, don't worry that you aren't allowed to have a diagnosis, because it'll creep up if you don't treat it. So listen to your doctors and just do your best.
Yeah.
The next one is post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. That is one that I deal with, but it's most commonly probably assumed that PTSD is associated with war or the military. And that's probably where you hear it the most. But PTSD can develop after a person experiences or witnesses a traumatic event. Symptoms include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, uncontrollable thoughts about the event, and treatments can include trauma-focused therapy and medications. For me, my PTSD fully encompasses the thought of suicide. So I don't think I've ever mentioned this before. If I have, it was very lightly touched on. But when I was about 10 or 12, my brother and I were down at the community pool. It was and I remember exactly like the atmosphere and everything to a T. It's everything up into what happened. Anything beyond that, I have no recollection of what happened after that. But I always remember the details.
Yeah.
It was an overcast day, not too hot, but slightly cold. My brother and I were down at the pool, and this guy walks in, and you can definitely tell that there was something not right about him. It probably kind of looked like he was maybe homeless, but you just weren't quite sure. And he gets into the pool just fully clothed and kind of swims around for a minute. My brother and I are just like, what? We're not going into the pool after this. But it was what he did afterwards is he took his shoes off, which I thought was weird. And then he looked at us and he said, clock me, which I interpret it means time me when I go down. He goes down, but he never goes back up. So
oh my God.
It was suicide.
Yeah.
And so that, if that wasn't bad enough, my brother's like, I got to go tell mom. So he leaves me at the pool. And I'm just sitting here at the side of the pool staring at this guy who's now floated to the top but face down. And I just have no idea what to do with it. And that bugs me to this day. So going to the pool, I don't like going to the pool alone. I have to be with someone.
Yeah.
If it's dark outside, I'm scared to go into the pool because I wonder what's in it. Even though I can slightly see what's in the pool, it still bothers me to this day. Open body waters terrify me because I'm afraid of what's in the water or what might float up from the water. So I have this constant PTSD about pools and about suicide. So when everyone talks about suicide, I shut down because I don't know anything better to do. And even when in medical records, we come across a lot of emergency records and a lot of behavioral therapy records where there are patients that write notes, if not looks like books, of how they attempted suicide or how successful they were up until the point. And it's just, it makes me cry. And then it makes me really sad and frustrated at the same time. So I can't deal with it. I've never been able to really deal with it. I don't know how to get past it. Maybe EMDR might help.
Yeah.
But it's one that truly frustrates me to the core. So I don't like it hearing people talking about it or telling stories about it. For the most part, if it's a lighthearted one, I can be fine. But if it's like super in depth and it's super sad, I shut down.
I think it's interesting too that you said that it goes sort of beyond pools. I think that that's exemplary of a lot of people's associations with their own PTSD, where like in theory it would only be pools and pools exclusively. But the thing about PTSD is like it's sort of a degenerative disorder. Like it can sort of, I don't want to use the word taint, but that's the only word I can think of, that like it sort of creeps into other aspects that are familiar to the initial event, and it can become really debilitating with other things that are similar. Like if you have one bad thing happen at a grocery store, maybe every single grocery store, even though it's not that exact grocery store, triggers you.
Yeah.
Or you have when you describe like you're reliving it, that can be called a flash bulb memory. That's what that's called, where like you remember every single thing about it. You never know why it comes into your mind. Like maybe it's triggered, but maybe it's not. And like you just remember it, and it's like your brain's like, hey, by the way, remember that traumatic thing you experienced? Well, you're about to experience it all over again. And
Yeah.
that's what sort of degenerates, that part of your mind where, you think that you're healing, but the disorder is what keeps pulling you back and pulling you back. And that can cause, it gives you the nightmares because you're subconsciously constantly thinking about it. And it can cause a lot of sadness, and it can also cause a lot of anger. I've seen a lot of people with PTSD that are like, I'm very, very angry, and that anger can be redirected in places you don't want it to be, or like you take it out on people when you don't want that to happen. But it's because inside you're very frustrated that you can't like shake this thing off of you, even though you want to so bad.
It's weird. I have other moments, like ones where I have bits and pieces that flash in memory, but I can't quite put a finger as to what the memory is. But a couple of years ago, I was prepping records and it just came at me like, I don't know what, like, honestly triggered it because nothing really makes sense. But then I had this full-on memory of, well, my divorced father at this point in the memory, but my dad's a dentist. And I remember being at the dental office with my mom late night, and I was in his office, but I could hear my mom making sexual noises, but they weren't the kind of noises you would, I guess you would say, would be the pleasantary kind. They're the kind of I'm being taken advantage of.
Oh, okay.
And I peeked my head out the side and I saw what my dad was doing. And that was traumatic for me, that he was taking advantage of her and sexually abusing her while she was under anesthesia. So that's effed up. So I don't necessarily have a fear of dentists, but for whatever reason, that memory came back at me full frontal a couple of years ago, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I just cried. I had no idea. I asked my brother, I'm like, has mom ever talked to you about this? And he's like, she's only mentioned it like once or twice, but I've never known the whole story. I'm like, well, I know the whole story. Well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So, but it's just like, events like that will come. Like I'll be like, I remember this event, but I don't remember what happened. And then one day it'll just appear and I'll know the whole memory. I wish I didn't.
It's either like, all of it and all of it comes back, or it's like nothing, and it's really frustrating because you're like, why can't I remember this? Or like, why am I angry right now? Or why am I sad? Especially with anything childhood related, because like the child mind has a strange way of justifying or twisting traumatic events to like be more palatable, but that can be frustrating too because you're like, what was it? God damn it. Like, what was this thing that's bothering me? And your brain codifies it and sort of stores it away in your memory bank as either something else or as a nothing. It's just like, well, you're not going to want to remember this. Let's just tuck this away and it'll come back when you least expect it.
I was talking to my therapist about this, and I was telling her how I was listening to an article on NPR a couple of years ago, and they were talking about PTSD in children and how there is a specific age range, and I don't know the age range specifically, but if a traumatic event happens within that age range, the brain will shut down. Now, you're still moving, you're still aware, but the brain shuts down. You don't really remember anything up or after that particular moment, or you just won't remember the moment. But the problem is if you don't treat or recognize that memory immediately, then you will deal with PTSD later on as the body starts to slowly filter these memories back to you.
Right. And how is a child's mind supposed to justify, especially, sexual things are big, as in like a child's mind can't really wrap its head around what is happening, and that
Yeah.
tends to process itself as relatively complex trauma, which we'll talk about soon. But on top of that, children tend to blame themselves very often for traumatic events. And so that can shape especially your adulthood in the way that you interact and your relationships as you go on, which I think is why I tend to like more psychodynamic therapy, even though it's a bit like people say it's outdated. But I think it can be good to relate, especially if you do have childhood trauma, to see how like that corresponds to the way that you interact with adults now, or especially like relationships, because we only know what we're shown as children. We don't have like the full exposure of the world, or we don't have that full understanding. And perhaps even though we want to break out of cycles, it can be difficult for us unless we understand why our personalities are the way they are.
And right now I'm kind of behind the mic. I'm fighting back emotions that I don't want to necessarily unveil during a recording. So
yeah.
There are moments where I'm just like, I need to cry, but I need to maintain professionalism right now. So,
yep.
Which this kind of rolls into the next one, which is All Ruby.
Yep, which I added this one because there is a difference between the two. It is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD. This one took me a long time to learn about, but it can result from experiencing chronic trauma, such as prolonged child abuse or domestic violence. I'm pulling from a kind of another site for it because this one wasn't on the list I used. It's closely related to PTSD and BPD, borderline personality disorder. It is manageable with psychotherapy and medication. This one's more, you don't have like where PTSD is an event, a traumatic event. This is long term. This is, for me, it was prolonged psychological child abuse. And it took a long time to get diagnosed because it showed itself as bipolar, as BPD, as autism, as what was the other one I said?
Something.
ADHD.
Yes.
But the thing that made it show itself was that none of my diagnoses completely fit any of the others. And it was not cycle based. It was reactionary. If you raise your voice at me, even I'll shut down. I have a mask and a shutdown button for every single, and this is, I'm trying to think, talk, and keep myself under control at the same time right now.
Right.
Do you ever experience numb tongue when you get through that? Do you know what that is?
Numb tongue. I can assume, but I want the definition.
It's when your body shivers and your whole face, including your body, just goes instantly numb.
I didn't know that's what that was called.
Yeah, so it's like you, when someone raises their voice at me or gets just angry with me, my body's version of shutting down is numb tongue. And
I have that too.
Literally stops me from doing everything.
I have not done it in a while. The way we describe it, and for me and my therapist, is the sheer number of walls I have up. My emotional responses kind of look like the setting from Attack on Titan. I have walls that are 1,000 miles thick around every single thing.
Ooh.
I can completely emotionally shut down to where I just don't feel anything.
And that's what CPTSD kind of implores you to do for survival. It's a survival impulse instinct, you know?
Because also for me, as when I was younger, any negative response was deemed disrespectful. So if you got angry, annoyed, it doesn't even matter if it was targeted towards the person. I was immediately being disrespectful, and it turned into all extreme responses. Even happiness would cause a shutdown because, oh shit, what if it's the wrong emotion? Turn off, shut down the fucking system.
Oh, wow.
Even here, and our fans have seen this, they've all come to me for this. The fact that people like hearing me talk, the fact that I have people that like having me here, freak me the fuck out. Because why? I have nothing worth, and this is, I know it is incorrect I know logically it is incorrect, but I have nothing worth saying. Why would you want to hear me yap on about nothing? It doesn't make money, so who the fuck cares about it? That's part of it. And it does come with a lot to deal with. I've come a long way in the last few years. Used to, if you got me into an argument And the fact that my wife has stayed with me for a decade now, we've been married for 10 years now. If ever we would get into a disagreement and I wanted the conversation to stop, I would do anything within my power to make it stop. It includes doing and saying things that are not okay. And it has taken this long to get to a point where I've grown enough to be able to start dealing with it. And it's taken medication, it's taken therapy. My therapist is the best in the universe with this. I love her. Thank you. You've gotten me to this point where I can be on this show and be okay doing it. Yeah, CPTSD can be rough because there's no pinpointed thing. I can't say this event caused it.
Right.
It was decades, and it took even more decades to figure out this is a thing.
And going back all the way to what Space said at the beginning, like the misconception about PTSD is that it has this like military, because that's when it was first, the origins of the diagnosis are actually relatively recent. And originally it was called shell shock, as in soldiers would come back from Vietnam, especially, and would say, they would have these symptoms. And even then, like for the men who would come back, it was stigmatized because the World War II vets would be like, you guys are sissies, you shouldn't feel this way, just get used to it, get over it. And like even then, that's like a toxic masculinity way to see it. And only after that were they like, hey, this is a legitimate issue. Like this is a legitimate thing that people are going through. And then only after that did we say, a lot of this seems to look like women who were sexually assaulted. Crazy how like these symptoms are. And that's when we started to blend the two together and realize like this is an over-encompassing diagnosis that doesn't necessarily have to have one or two of these things happen. It can be a lot of things, and different people are traumatized by a lot of different things, be it in childhood or so on. But the symptomology is the same, and that's what, we're treating. We're treating the symptoms and not, and that goes for any of these. There's a relatively large movement that diagnosis is important for the client and the practitioner, because that is kind of like your playbook. The DSM is your playbook to say, well, which one of these fits you the best? It's not your identity. It's not, the thing that shapes you, but it's how have we treated this in the past to make you a more functional and successful person. Not functional in the sense that you can go to work every day and be a good little worker bee, but it gets you up in the day. It makes you feel motivated. You're healing legitimately and not as a more productive member of society. I think that that's also a negative way to see it. But for PTSD and CPTSD, there's a lot of research that still needs to be done, I think, societally, like for women especially, or honestly, any like non-military PTSD. It would be important to find a therapist that will work with you and won't just see it as something that needs like fixing. Like exposure therapy can only go so far, but that is probably the most common way to treat it, is to say, well, you should just expose yourself to it. And I think that you need to really trust your therapist and have a really good relationship with them in order to do something like that.
I think what's interesting is this next one has the same acronym as the one further down. So.
Oh yeah, they're both sad.
Yeah, they're both sad.
Yeah.
I like sad better for seasonal affective because it's like, well, that one does make you bummed out now, doesn't it? This one...
I do get that. I get that during the winter time into springtime.
It's becoming more common, like more commonly recognized.
Why don't you go over social anxiety disorder?
Social anxiety disorder, something a lot of furries have, I've noticed. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's that fear of social situations. Now, that doesn't mean that if you don't like public speaking or doing jumping jacks in front of your, entire family lineage that you're a socially anxious person. It's more so like if it, like with any of these other diagnoses, it impacts you if it impedes your day-to-day life. A lot of it revolves around scrutiny from others, and it can also lead to isolation from like social events, things like that. Very similar to OCD, very similar to GAD. It's just the context in which it is in. A lot of younger folks I've seen, especially like post-COVID, because like social isolation was the norm for a developmentally crucial time for a lot of people, that it's become very difficult to like re-engage with people.
I often get angry seeing people's pictures at cons. And for me, it's because I'm angry with myself that I can't enjoy a con like they do. Because when I go to a con, I get super anxious. I'm worried that people aren't going to like me, but I also worry that I'm not good enough for the people around me. And so to see other people having so much fun, it makes me mad that I can't get that I can't get to that point where I can just be like, yeah, it's carefree. This is a cool con, all that jazz and all that fun stuff. I just can't. And it just, makes me mad.
That's so interesting because you're such an outgoing person.
I know. So I'm very outgoing online.
Yep.
Somewhat in person, but I'm also an introvert as well. in social situations. It just depends on the situation itself.
Yeah, for our listeners, that's important to know, though, because I'm sure a lot of them feel the same way, where it's like online, I'm like the bubbliest thing ever. And then the second you meet me in person, it's like, I don't want to screw up. I don't want to say the wrong thing and be weird and so on and so forth.
I'm usually really quiet in person than I am online, which is
Yes.
a complete different than what most people are expecting. So, schizophrenia. This is always a fun one.
This is always a fun one.
Schizophrenia, it is. Schizophrenia is a severe mental disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. It often involves hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thinking. Antipsychotic medications and support therapy are common treatments. Isn't schizophrenia also like they have like multiple personalities or multiple beings?
That's different. That's
Is that more personality disorder?
That is, yeah, it's like a trauma. It's a dissociative disorder is where it would be classified now. It used to be, I forget what it's called now. It was multiple
Dissociative identity.
Yes, now it's DID, dissociative identity disorder. Thank you, Ruby.
Interesting.
Schizophrenia is also a diagnosis that's typically mischaracterized as like, typically people will associate it with violence, which is so interesting to me because I've worked with people who do have schizophrenia diagnoses, both like former drug addicts who have it as like a side effect even though they're in remission, or just, they have it naturally. It tends to be passed down genetically from the mother's side, and the largest like common symptomology of it is that you have dissociations or hallucinations with one of your five senses. So the other big thing is people are like, it means you see people that aren't there. And it's like, could that happen? Yes. A lot of times in my experience, it would be olfactory. So that's like they smell something that's not there, or it would be auditory. So like you hear things that aren't there, whispers, things like that aren't physically there. But people think like,
sucks.
Yeah, people will say like people think, oh, the voices are telling me to hurt people. And it's like, that is not my experience. That is not how people react. Typically it's like more so like a mosquito constantly buzzing in your ear and you're like, can you please just go away? And it just doesn't.
I've seen lots of records where they talk about how the voices told me to do this.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Much like multiple personality or now DID, very mischaracterized as something I see a lot of when people talk about mass shooters, like, were they schizophrenic? And it's like, that's not, I don't think there has been any that are or claim to be even schizophrenic. And then the antipsychotic medications would be things like Seroquel. There are many others, but it kind of quells that feeling. There's also, because some schizophrenic patients are unable to like take their pills regularly, especially in the case of like paranoid schizophrenia, and that's where you see people who are more, it's a lot of talk of like, oh, the government is putting something, or I'm being watched constantly. A lot of those people, if they get really bad, they'll refuse to take their medications because they can have false beliefs that they're somehow poisonous or this or that. So what we can do for cases like that is people will come in and get an injection once a month, or even we can go to them and give them the injection if they're houseless or something like that. We can give them an injection, and that's good for like a month or so, and then you can come back. But yeah, that one's relatively complicated to treat. That one needs it can be more intensive for the care.
Interesting.
And actually, I do not have outright schizophrenia. I think it is tied mostly to some responses with my CPTSD. But random hallucinations suck ass. I have them, including shadows. So instead of seeing people, I will see shadows moving. It's my brain trying to fill in of, hey, someone has to be. The threat is always there, so my brain fills in that gap. And then also auditory, which is randomly hearing my name. Places.
Yeah, a lot of those can come from like that hypervigilance from the CPTSD, where you're constantly needing to be aware.
And then also it gets worse with like insomnia. If I don't sleep, I luckily have dogs and I use them to make sure it's like, is this really here?
Right.
No, good. Like one time I went 3 days without sleeping. For the love of God, do not do that. And I heard knocking. Like someone knocking at the door constantly. So I looked at my dogs who usually respond to people knocking at the door and I went, nope. They're not responding to it. It's not real. Yeah. I'm going to continue watching my YouTube.
Or maybe it's a ghost.
Maybe
Maybe it's Casper.
It wouldn't be shocked. This house have had people pass away in it. So
Ruby, I know you want to talk about that. I know you want to talk about that ADHD.
Yes. And also, I'm next on the list. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder that causes inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. It most commonly diagnosed in children, but can persist into adulthood. Behavioral therapy and medication are the primary treatments. Though it is not technically that, it's what you kind of like with schizophrenia, thinking it's similar to DID. Like, it's not the whole, ooh, shiny disorder, but yeah, it can kind of be that.
The squirrel disorder.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you're about squirrel.
The squirrel.
Hi, I'm Doug.
There's also attention, so ADD. I don't know if this
It's
is
under the same umbrella.
Yes, now it's like now it's a spectrum, much like autism is a spectrum. So there's like the inattentive type would be like formerly classified as ADD, and then ADHD is the hyperactive type. So there's the kind where like you struggle to pay attention, but you might not have that like squirrel impulse, and then the hyperactive version is more.
And also, and I think they're now starting to see it, but it does respond and act differently in different genders.
Yes, absolutely. Much like autism.
Yeah, because I think, it does show differently. And sometimes that's why it used to be most commonly diagnosed in male children. I was diagnosed with it very young and in a different gender. But again, pieces of that fall under the CPTSD umbrella too. So that's where it got confused. It can mess with like interests and stuff because you'll be like, ooh, I want to try this. Or I want to try, let's say, I don't want to say
CBT.
it because...
No, just kidding.
No. I was about to say an activity, but my wife just picked up said activity. But it's like, ooh, I want to try painting. So you go to the art store and buy like $100 worth of painting supplies. And a week later, it's like, ooh, I want to try this. Ooh, I want to try this.
Yeah.
Or it's the joke of, I see the joke on Facebook all the time. It's like, hey, dude, I'm going to come over in like half an hour. Okay. And the person speed cleans the entire house because they've been inattentive to cleaning because it's kind of the out of sight, out of mindness.
Right.
It affects executive function. There's the word I was looking for. So thinking that you need to do it in 30 minutes, you do it, and it's like, hey, why aren't you coming over? Oh, you told me to call you every couple of days and have you do that.
Wow.
I've heard a lot of people say it impacts, like, typically it would be seen not only in young men, not only with memory, but a lot of them would be like, well, if you're bad at school, you have ADHD. If you can't sit still and you're bad at school, but like that's actually not that true. It's just it's the way that the brain works. So a lot of people with ADHD would be better at cramming for tests and like be relatively successful, but it's just they can't. It needs to be like in these short bursts.
Yes.
Thankfully, now schools are a little more well adapted to accommodating for students who have certain needs or just like understanding like, hey, you're not doing your homework. Let's like figure something out.
Yeah, it's no longer like you're not doing your homework. So, you're not
just
doing
lazy,
your homework.
Or you're not paying attention or,
You're the next one, Kara.
Oh, yeah. So the next one, I mentioned it a little bit. That's panic disorder. So panic disorder relates specifically to panic attacks. I've seen a lot of differentiation online between anxiety attacks and panic attacks. I'd say anxiety attacks are less severe than a panic attack. Panic disorder is diagnosed by your personal fear of like your next panic attack. So like worrying that you're going to have these repeated attacks. So they don't really have an obvious cause. They have like the chest pain, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath. They're more intense. Like they're genuinely debilitating. You can't help them if you're in public. It comes on out of nowhere, and it's a relatively simple diagnosis. It's treated much like the other anxiety disorders are. It's considered an anxiety disorder, and there's a lot of help for folks, but it can lead to isolation because like you don't want to be out or doing something important, and then you have a sudden onset panic attack, and so on and so forth. Leads to a lot of hospitalizations as well, I'd say.
Yeah,
because it can feel like a heart attack.
I've actually had that happen before.
The next one is eating disorders. Eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder involve abnormal eating habits that actively impact physical and mental health. Treatment options include nutritional guidance, therapy, and medication.
Yep.
And then, Ruby, you got phobias.
Okay, I was about to say, this is the one. Yeah, eating disorder is the one that I have no add-on to. Yeah, next is phobias. Phobias are intense, irrational fears of specific objects, situations, or activities. Common phobias are fear of heights, spiders, enclosed spaces. Exposure therapy and relaxation techniques can help manage phobias. Yeah, needles.
Yeah.
100% needles.
The difference between a fear and a phobia, too, is a phobia, just like any of these other diagnoses, I know I keep saying it, but it's important to remember, like, it needs to impede your daily functioning. Or, like, maybe not daily functioning, but it needs to impede your functioning. Like, I'm scared of spiders, but, like, I'm not going to not enter a pet store because they have tarantulas. But if you have a phobia of spiders, you will avoid spiders at all costs, to the point where you're like, well, I have to feed my dog today, but I'm going to have to go 2 miles out instead of this pet store because they don't have tarantulas. Something like that, you know?
Yeah.
It genuinely, like, affects your daily functioning and prevents you from doing things.
Yeah. I've definitely gotten my needle phobia under control. My former doctor's office says I'm the first person to ever prove it they had pulse meters attached to me, and seeing the needle sent like almost tripled my pulse.
Oh my God. Needles is a very common one, though.
Yes. But in mine has been more exposure therapy and medication.
Space, that's crazy.
Exposure therapy, because being trans, I have to get my blood drawn quite a bit.
Oh, that's true.
In the kink community, I've watched needle play, so I've been around it. And also, I have like the highest strength anxiety medication. What is it? Ativan. Specifically for a needle to touch my skin. That includes blood draws, tattoos, piercing, any of those. It looks weird on paper because it's like, we're going to give you a prescription, and it lasts like a year and a half. And it's like, you haven't run out yet? Yeah, I haven't had that much blood drawn.
So it's up to situational.
Yeah, it is an event. It is an event only prescription. And it works very well.
It's good to know that that's an option for folks out there that might like say like, well, I have these very like specific intense things, but it's not all the time. Like you can do that. You can have situational.
Now, also, like when I had to go in for a surgery, it was an emergency. I couldn't take it. That was all right, grit your teeth. It's like, do it. I love the nurses that it's like, oh, it's okay. It's going to be fine. You'll be all right. It's just going to be this little bit. I have looked at my aunt who is a nurse and was drawing blood for me, and I've looked at her and said, will you please shut the fuck up? It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not going to be okay. It's not just do it while I am keeping myself in freeze so I don't go into fight.
Yeah.
Just.
It's funny, whenever I go into the doctors and they need to blob my drug.
They need to blob blub. They need to blob nub.
Blob my drug. Draw my blood. I hold out my wrists or my arms, and they're like, well, which one do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. They both got scars on them. You can probably see the entry points, but I'm like, that's not what I'm worried about. Good luck trying to find a vein. Because my veins, they move around a ton. So they'll like, this is going to make you feel uncomfortable, but this is, this doesn't bother me. They'll put the needle in and then I can see it moving around underneath the skin.
Oh my God. It doesn't bother me either.
I am curled up into a pretzel.
I like hearing you get further and further away from your microphone because you're in a ball.
Okay, I'm back.
Do you have like a fear of blood then as well? Or just
no, I worked as a vet assistant. I have been covered head to toe in blood that was not mine. Doesn't faze me.
So interesting.
Like
it is the puncture. I don't care about blood. Blood is just a thing. It's a liquid. Who cares? It's that needle. It does expand to any puncturing things. But if I'm commonly getting stabbed by a knife, something's wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Needle is the consistent. I'm going to get punctured by.
Well,
yeah.
Like I'm not going to get stabbed by a knife.
Would be a concern for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even like, and this is going to go into hopefully not turning anybody else into a pretzel, but like actually getting sliced, because I cook a lot. So if I get sliced by a knife, it's like, oh, okay. If I get bitten by a dog, which has happened, or a cat, or scratched by an animal, it's like, oh, okay, I'm bleeding, whatever.
Right.
It's that act of puncturing.
Well, it's also like, I feel like they kind of, when a lot of people will go to the doctor, they'll be like, just do it quick. Like, it's because they take so damn long. They're like, okay, let me find this. And just like freaking you out mentally beforehand instead of just doing it.
I know exactly which arm has the better vein. One of my arms has a valve right where they would draw. I know exactly where to put it in. So I walk in, sit down, put that arm off and go right there.
Yep.
And then I look away. So I get it over with. Let's go. You got 5. You got about a minute. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, needles don't bother me.
No.
Next
is sad.
Sad seasonal affective disorder.
We're not making fun of the disorder. We're making fun of the acronym.
It is a hysterical acronym for one of the most commonly diagnosed disorders, which is like, it's a type of depression related to seasonal changes. Typically it worsens in the fall or winter because of the reduced sunlight exposure. So a lot of doctors think that it's related to, it's vitamin D, right? That comes from the sun.
Yes.
It's a deficit of that. So some folks really enjoy light therapy, which is like literally like cooking in the sun like a plant, like having like a sun lamp in your room or something like that, as well as the antidepressant medications. But it tends to go in tandem. So like for those who have major depressive or anxiety, it's like, well, and this doesn't help. Here's an inclusion that really doesn't help anybody, but it sucks for you in the winter too.
The next one kind of works just perfectly for me because that's what I deal with every day. So it's insomnia disorder. Chronic insomnia involves difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, and getting restful sleep. This condition impacts daytime function and overall health. Treatment may include cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia or CBT-1 or is it CBTI? Might be CBTI. And sleep hygiene practices. This one, it kind of I don't know why I have it. It's been said that I have I produce like little to no melatonin, which is why I have to take in melatonin. My doctors don't believe it. Like my sleep doctor's like, the average human being only really needs like 1 to 3 milligrams of melatonin. I'm like, well, do I look like the average human being? Why would I be coming to you? You know? And so I tried it for a week, just 1 to 3, and I couldn't fall asleep. So I went back up to my normal regimen, which I know it sounds insane, 20 milligrams of melatonin.
Oh my God.
So
that would like knock me out for like a week.
Not enough. Well, it's just about right. A little more than that might actually keep me awake, which is kind of interesting. My regimen for sleeping goes as this. I think it's what is it? Sodium? No, it's I need to look it up here.
Potassium, maybe?
No, what is magnesium?
Oh yes.
Magnesium
sulfate.
glycolconate or something? So I'll take 2 of those at 7, and then at 8 o'clock, I'll take trazodone, hydroxyzine, and Lunesta along with my blood thinner. And then at 8:30, I'll take 10 milligrams of melatonin. They're the melty kind. And then at 9 o'clock, I will take the other 10. And right around 9:30 to 9:45 is when I start to feel sleepy and I can go to bed.
Do you have dreams?
Oh, yeah. Oh, intense dreams.
Yeah. Melatonin always gives me like really freaky dreams. Like I dream normally, but like whenever I take melatonin, which is not often, I'll be like, oh my God.
Yeah, but I have that fear. I have a constant, maybe it is a phobia, but I have a constant fear that I'm not going to fall asleep. And that creates anxiety, which then creates an uncertainty if I will actually fall asleep or not. It's just annoying, but it is what I have, and it's nothing really I can deal with. Or nothing I can't do about other than just the medications.
Yeah.
Somatic? I guess that's yours.
Yep. Next up is somatic symptom disorder. Yeah, that one's a hard one to... I haven't either. Somatic system disorder involves excessive focus on physical symptoms like pain or fatigue, causing significant distress and impairment. Cognitive behavior therapy is often used to manage this condition. I know absolutely zero about this.
Honestly, me too. Like, I feel like it plays into more of that, like, constantly... It could play into health anxiety a bit, but it seems like the pain and fatigue for this one would be more legitimate. Like it's something you have diagnosed.
I'm going to look at something real quick.
Yeah.
And see if this applies. Okay, so the only reason I know this particular cross is because I've been watching Grey's Anatomy like crazy for like the last like month or two. It's great. I watch Grey's Anatomy for the sole purpose of that it makes me feel emotions. It's the only reason why I watch it. Because with all my antidepressants, I feel like most of the time my emotions just aren't there.
Space, you should watch The Pit. You'd love it. You'd love it so much.
Okay.
It's so good. That's on HBO Max. It's also a hospital show, and it's like quick.
Oh, damn. It's good stuff.
It's really gory, though. I'll warn you on that.
I don't care.
Yeah, you'll love it.
But with somatic symptom disorder, with amputees, there's something called phantom limb sensations and pain.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So when an amputee loses their leg, but they still feel the pain even though the leg is no longer there, this is something that falls into somatic symptoms.
I see. So it's like a sort of, you'd say, nagging. It's a nagging pain, be it phantom or otherwise, that kind of affects your day-to-day. Next one, we touched on a little bit. It's the dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. It's a dissociative disorder that can stem from trauma, specifically childhood trauma, complex trauma. And it's where, as a defense mechanism, your brain will sort of segment your personality into multiple alters. And those alters each tend to have a role. Some of them can be protectors, some of them. So your mental state will shift from one to the other depending on the context in which they're needed. To put it simply, there's a lot of research that I think needs to be done on it. There's a lot of change. That's probably the diagnosis that has the most eyes on it right now in terms of like how it's going to be defined in the next DSM. So if you're interested in like psychology or like more modern psych, I would keep your eyes on that diagnosis specifically.
I started having hiccups right in the middle of that.
I didn't hear it, so.
Yep. And okay, so for the next one, I'm actually going to bring a random quick guest in because my wife is a special education teacher. And the next one, and I'll leave that up to y'all because I'm about to lose ear on what we're talking about. Might be able to do the next one too, but here is my wife. The next person you'll hear is my wife, who will talk about the next thing.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm giggling. I'm getting thrown into this at the last minute. So
no pressure.
I know, right? No pressure. So, do I need to say my name?
Yeah, go ahead and say.
Okay, I don't know.
You've been on the show before. So
yeah.
It's Autumn.
So I'm Autumn. I'm Ruby's wife. But so oppositional defiance disorder, or in short is ODD. Children are commonly receive this diagnosis of ODD. It's marked by their defiant, hostile, and uncooperative behavior, especially towards authority figures. Family therapy and behavioral strategies are effective treatments. Also with ODD, you have to look at, so children will have frequent tantrums. They'll be vindictive or revenge seeking. So it might be a minor slip. They might blow and explode in a way.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Children are diagnosed normally before their teenage years, like adolescence. I had a student, kindergartner, my second year of teaching, I think, who had ODD. And it was basically like you had a 16-year-old in a 5-6-year-old body.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
There's a really good documentary about it. It's called A Dangerous Son, and it shows like multiple children. It like gives you some insight on how quick that turning can be. It's also a disorder that can only be diagnosed in children. I think once you turn 18, it can be like intermittent explosive, or there's another one too. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it's definitely like a child-focused disorder. If you're interested in child psychology, I would look into it for sure. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's that defiance to opposition to adults, things like that.
Yeah, any rule, authority, anything that like you ask them to do something, they're gonna spark back or argue, very argumentative. And so yeah, definitely more children have it.
And there's like camps and things where it shows like how they're sort of restructured in a gentle way, because it can be very frustrating for parents who have children with ODD. There's a big stigma around like, well, the parents just aren't doing their job, or like you would see them having tantrums and it's like, well, they just need to control their children, or like if they're violent, especially violent outbursts at school, the parents are often blamed. But it can be a lot of different factors. It's just a non-neurotypical like disorder in which like the kids who are doing it don't want to have tantrums. So there should be a bit more empathy in considering like, well, imagine if that was you and like you had no regulation over your emotions, but it was the only way you could show like either sensory overload or this or that. It has a lot of stigma.
Exactly. Yes, it does. And especially the tantrums and stuff like that, or that perception of the parents aren't doing anything. And it's definitely not true.
Yeah.
It could also be that maybe the parents just don't know what to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
I wouldn't. Yeah, to be completely honest, like it's a very difficult one.
Yeah, so that's where like seeing with therapy, we have a lot of students with ODD have an IEP possibly. It depends on the impact to their education, and so for a lot of students, it is a big impact.
It's so
for
nice
those who
to get
may
your
not know,
perspective.
can you tell people what an IEP is? I know what it is.
Thank you. Sorry. I went into special ed speak. So an IEP is an individualized education plan or program. You'll hear those two words like differently. And it's for students who have a disability. And there's 14 categories in North Carolina, but they depend on they vary state by state kind of, but pretty much nationally it's 14 categories. And so they have goals and services to improve the students' growth and like prepare them for after high school and like life. So, I mean, you range from developmentally delayed, 8 and younger, to intellectually disabled mild, to just a learning disability and like math or reading or anxiety can be one as other health impairment. So,
and the parents would like come in and have meetings to go over like the game plan of what that would look like, as well as like the school therapists and social workers, which is the side of the table I've been on, to say like, oh, well, you're going to meet, once a week and talk about your progress and things like that.
Yep. So it's like a whole school approach that those services are provided. Yep.
Relatively new outlook, as opposed to like just having those special ed classes sort of back in the day where they would just, any student that was quote unquote disruptive, they would just have in one room and it would be sort of like all applicable. And nowadays it's definitely a lot more individualized and specialized, and you meet with the parents and each child gets accommodated to what they need and things like that.
Yeah, their own goals. Yeah. And there's no more, and there's a lot more inclusion, which is those students, like you said, not being in that one room. Like a student with ODD might be put into like a behavior classroom where it's a smaller group and then it's like more targeted, but there's more, like you said, pushing for inclusion, because at some point you're going to hit the real world where there's people that aren't going to be your small little circle.
Yeah, we would do like certain like group therapies for different disorders or things that the kids were struggling with, and they were able to talk about it together, which was nice.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have your perspective, though.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
All right, yep, I'll take it back. Okay.
You take it over.
Yep.
Sorry.
All right, I'm back. Thank you, honey.
Okay, Kira, you've got ASD.
We talked a little bit about this in my first podcast, because I think that autism is something that a lot of furries especially like can relate to or have the diagnosis. Not everybody, obviously, but it's definitely more common in the furry fandom. So autism spectrum disorder, it's a very large spectrum. Typically, back in the day, it used to be split between autism and Asperger's, which was like diet autism. Nowadays, it's more of a spectrum, and it affects social interaction, communication, behavior. I would also say sensory issues. Like, I feel like that's relatively common across the board. It can be mild to severe. It's often diagnosed during early childhood, though there is a gender difference, as we mentioned previously, for ADHD, where a lot of women go under the radar because they have different social expectations. Typically, like, it's either considered like, oh, she's just shy or forced to interact or quote unquote, deal with their sensory issues, as opposed to a lot of young men. But yeah, behavioral training, speech therapy, social skills training. Autism is another one where we are like really cracking open the books and rewriting everything we thought we knew, because there's just so much there. Not caused by vaccines. I will say that first and foremost.
No, it's obviously 5G.
Yeah, definitely. That's
obviously
100%. Yeah, if you have the 5G towers near your house, I have bad news for you.
Y'all
are cooked.
No, seriously, yeah. Sorry, I love all the excuses. So it's like, 5G, windmill or wind turbine, solar panel,
LGBTQ,
all those.
drag queen story hour. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over as a society. No, but you do see a lot of people. Jewish space lasers. A lot of people will say, like, well, why weren't there, why are there all these autistic people now and there weren't back in my day, And my answer would be like,
well, they were there.
So, Grandma, can I go touch your, like, spoon collection?
Literally.
No.
Your uncle who was really, 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 really into trains. Yeah, I got some news for him.
Yeah.
And I think that there can be a mix, right? Where people are socialized. Like, there are ways to socialize if you're an autistic person, or like especially like a parent of an autistic child, where they're not socially debilitated. Of course, it depends on the severity of the diagnosis, but like, people can thrive as autistic adults and just be like really into something, or just be a little quirky. Like, it really doesn't affect, depending on how you live your life, it It's not something that's going to, ruin it by any means. And I think that that's what people think of when they're like, well, why do all of you have this diagnosis? And it's like, it's important to be aware of the way your brain works, but that doesn't mean that you're going to live a bad life or the life you don't want to live just because you have that diagnosis.
Okay. The next one is narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Yeah, I have experience with it because guess who caused my CPTSD? Hopefully my mother never listens to this episode. NPD involves an inflated sense of self-importance, need for admiration, and lack of empathy for others. Therapy, particularly psychodynamic therapy, can help individuals with NPD develop healthier self-esteem. Yeah, I lived with someone that you could not ever tell them they were wrong.
Yeah, and there's two sides to every diagnosis, and I think narcissistic personality disorder, any of the personality disorders probably have the worst stigma around them, and it's just a matter of perspective. Like, I think that not only can it be difficult for people with these disorders to interact day to day because, like, it's just the way your brain is set up, you really can't help it, though narcissistic personality disorder is a particularly difficult one to treat because they tend to be treatment resistant.
Yeah, you have to get them to admit there's a problem.
Yes.
And in a disability that makes them not believe there's a problem.
Right, or like even if they know there's a problem, it can be difficult for them to open up about it because they want to maintain this like air of confidence, which tends to come from trauma as well, where they were told that they were like not worth anything or this or that, and to them their defense mechanism was like, well, I just have to be the best, and that's where that comes from. But without there are positions, like there are functional roles in society where somebody with that disorder would like thrive. Like if you are in a position where you have to be like the number one authority on something, and if you were cognizant and very good at what you do, then that can be a great position for you. But yeah, it can be difficult with any of the personality disorders, I would say. But narcissistic is like the self-inflated ego, very difficult relationships with others, especially like romantic relationships, things like that.
Our last one is substance use disorders. Those involve addiction to drugs or alcohol, leading to physical and mental health issues. Treatment often includes detoxification, rehabilitation, and ongoing support groups.
And that's like more of a new thing that people drug use is very stigmatized to begin with, let alone considered like a disorder, right? As opposed to just a selfish, use of something. But it really is. And I think that people are softening up to it, and there's a large industry around treating substance use specifically and peer counseling, and I've seen great work done by my peers in that realm of substance use, and there's a lot of help out there.
Yes.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. I do want to go over some resources that you can use if you need to find a therapist or if you just need to talk with someone. Those resources would be like psychologytoday.com, the 988 Lifeline, the Trans Lifeline, my personal favorite, the Trevor Project, BetterHelp.com, and I don't know what the Finch app.
Okay, this is me adding it in.
I've used the Finch app before as well.
Yes, I still do.
It's really good for ADHD.
It's and actually just monitoring your emotions and mood. It is an app where you basically raise a little baby finch, and you get to like do all of like dress up Tamagotchi-ish things, but it helps you list out your goals. You have rewards for it, but it also constantly asks you, well, what's your mood? How satisfied were you with your day? Name your emotions, reflect on things. It's a very good little app, and I have the premium version of it because I like all the additional like things, but it turns your mental health and monitoring things into a game, and gamification is awesome.
Yeah, it works very nicely, and you can add friends on it and stuff like that too. There's little quests, but
you can send presents and team up and things. Yeah,
I wanted to recommend that if you suspect that you might need to seek a therapist or feel the need to, or perhaps you resonate with one of these diagnoses, I would get if you don't want to do Finch, there's a million other mood tracker apps. You can even do it on paper if that's your jam, but I would just track your mood, your sleep, and your diet. those 3 things for as long as it takes for you to get the therapist and then beyond. I'm not a huge journaling person. I feel like the people who do it regardless, and then the people who don't want to do it will never do it. Just a simple like tracking of that sort of thing can really help any type of healthcare professional with seeing, you know, where your cycles are, what might your triggers be, things like that. Mood tracking is so helpful in the early stages of therapy. I can't emphasize it enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as per usual, we thank everyone for listening in to our episode. If you have questions about this episode or just want to write us an email, you can at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com, and then we will respond. You can always find us in our Telegram group, and that information is down below, and then on Twitter and Blue Sky. Oh, and YouTube.
On YouTube now, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
YouTube. We're back on YouTube again, finally. So
we're so back.
We're
Can't wait.
back. Anyways, thanks for listening in, and y'all have a great day.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.